Welcome to Kaumudy Global. They file into neighboring countries by the hundreds of thousands of refugees from Ukraine, clutching children in one arm, belongings in the other. And they are being heartily welcomed by leaders of countries like Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Moldova, and Romania. But while the hospitality has been applauded, it has also highlighted stark differences in treatment given to migrants and refugees from the Middle East and Africa, particularly Syrians who came in 2015. Some of the language from these leaders has been disturbing to them and deeply hurtful. These are not the refugees we are used to. These people are Europeans, Bulgarian Prime Minister Kirill Petkov told journalists earlier this week of the Ukrainians. These people are intelligent, they are educated people. This is not the refugee wave we have been used to. People we were not sure about their identity, people with unclear past who could have been even terrorists. In other words, he added, there is not a single European country now which is afraid of the current wave of refugees. Syrian journalist Uqba Mohammed says the statement mixes racism and Islamophobia. When it comes to Ukraine, the change in tone of some of Europe's most extreme anti-migration leaders have been striking. From, we aren't going to let anyone in, and to, we are letting everyone in. Those comments were made only 3 months apart by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. In the first in December, he was addressing migrants and refugees from the Middle East and Africa seeking to enter Europe via Hungary. In the second, this week, he was addressing people from Ukraine. And it's not just politicians. Some journalists are also being criticized for how they are reporting on and describing Ukrainian refugees. These are prosperous middle-class people, an Al Jazeera English television presenter said. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East, in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to. The channel issued an apology saying the comments were insensitive and irresponsible. CBS News also apologized after one of its correspondents said the conflict in Kyiv wasn't like Iraq or Afghanistan that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European city. When over 1 million people crossed into Europe in 2015, support for refugees fleeing wars in Syria, Iraq and Afghanistan was much greater. Of course, there were also moments of hostility, such as when a Hungarian cameraman was filmed kicking and possibly tripping migrants along the country's border with Serbia. Still back then, Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel famously said, "We can do it," and the Swedish Prime Minister urged citizens to open your hearts to refugees. But none of these arguments has been applied to their Ukrainian neighbors with whom they share historical and cultural ties. Parts of Ukraine today were also once a part of Poland and Hungary. Over 1 million Ukrainians live and work in Poland, and hundreds of thousands more are scattered across Europe. Some 150,000 ethnic Hungarians also live in western Ukraine, many of whom have Hungarian passports. But as more and more people scramble to flee and Russia advanced, several reports emerged of non-white residents of Ukraine, including Nigerians, Indians and Lebanese, getting stuck at the border with Poland. Unlike Ukrainians, many non-Europeans need visas to get into neighboring countries. Embassies from around the world were scrambling to assist their citizens struggling to get through chaotic border crossing out of Ukraine. Videos shared on social media posted under the hashtag Africans in Ukraine allegedly showed African students being held back from boarding trains out of Ukraine to make space for Ukrainians. The United Nations Refugee Agency has urged receiving countries to continue to welcome all those fleeing conflict and insecurity irrespective of nationality and race. I'm Neha signing out.